1. A predicament. "You've come quite far enough, young man." The voice, clear and hard as steel and undoubtedly feminine, echoed against the bare rock of the cliff face that loomed ahead on the red dirt path. I gave a sharp pull on the reins, bringing my dusty sorrel mount to a halt, stiffening in the saddle. It was her. It had to be her. I drew in a slow, deep breath as my heart quickened. "For Christ's sake, Van, settle down. This is what you've been waiting for. Don't lose your nerve now." I swallowed hard in a suddenly dry mouth and tightened my hold on the reins. "I ain't gone far enough till I find Ethelene," I called out in reply, keeping the brim of my hat low as I took in the path ahead, squinting for a sign of moving shadows, ears pricked for sounds of shifting gravel or the cock of a hammer. Nothing. Not a shadow out of place. No sound except the soft breeze whispering against the smooth rock face, the faraway shriek of a hawk circling for prey. For a heartbeat, I worried my information had been wrong. I worried Holt had been right. I worried I'd come all the way out here for nothing. But then, a slim figure dressed all in black stepped out from behind the pale carved rock ahead, abruptly enough to make my horse throw up his head and snort in alarm. I sat steady in the saddle as he shifted uneasily beneath me, never taking my eyes off her. Nine-fingered Nan. She looked different in person than she did on the posters. Older, taller, more fierce. Like she could drop you dead with just a nod of her head. And according to some of the stories about her, she could. Long wisps of silver-white hair fell from beneath her black, broad-brimmed hat, floating about her shoulders. She stood straight and proud and seemingly immune to the heat of the noonday sun beating down upon us, her cold blue eyes boring hard into mine. She had a gun belt over her skirts, holding a matching set of pistols, a shiny golden buckle that winked in the sun, and a bandolier across one shoulder. I tensed. Sweat trickled down between my shoulder blades. My horse gave a nervous whicker. Nine-fingered Nan made no move for her guns, yet. I was all too aware, then, of my own pair of irons weighing heavy on my hips. Slowly, gently, I set the reins down over my saddle horn, letting my hand sit loose atop it, ready to draw if I needed to. She tilted her chin up, letting the sun splash across her wizened, weather-worn features. Her pale eyes narrowed. "You're the brother." It weren't a question, so I didn't answer. Instead, I bit off a question of my own, hoarse and rough. "Where is she?" Nine-fingered Nan's wrinkled lips twitched. It might have been a smile. It might have been a smirk. "Not here." I clenched my teeth together hard, resisting the urge to draw. I was in no mood for games. Not after everything I'd done to get this far. Then, where? How should I know? My heart throbbed in my throat, rushing in my ears. Somehow I got the words out around the rage. "I know you have her," I snarled. "Hate to tell you, but your man, Lloyd Renneker, squealed. Had to carve him up real good 'fore he'd talk, but talk he did. I know you know where she is. Stop wasting my time." Her expression didn't change at my outburst, didn't even waver at the news I'd cut up and bled out one of her crew. "Your information is bad, boy. Your sister ain't here, never was, never will be. You're hunting a ghost. Your sister is dead." The words hit like lead, sucking all the breath out of me. The terrified part of me, the guilt-ridden part that dredged up that night over and over again in nightmares, that hated myself for not getting back to Ethelene sooner, that urged me to drown myself in whiskey or shine or the nearest lake and be done with it. That part of me knew it could be true. But the other part of me, the part that burned for whatever justice I could get, that kept dragging me on day after day for year after year, chasing rumors and whispers that a girl named Ethelene Delano was still alive. That part of me refused to believe. Ethelene was still alive. Lord Renneker had said so, and he'd said she was with Nine-Fingered Nan, about to be sold for an exorbitant sum to a wealthy merchant overseas. "You lie," I rasped. I intended to draw right then and there and put a bullet between the eyes of Nine-Fingered Nan. But the gun blast that roared against the rocks weren't mine. My horse dropped to the ground like a stone, and I hit the dirt path with a grunt, ears ringing. Disoriented, I struggled to pull my leg from beneath the dead weight of the sorrel as Nine-Fingered Nan crunched across the gravel-strewn ground in her worn black boots, straight at me, one of her pistols smoking in her hand. Her right hand, the hand with the missing trigger finger. Some people said it had been my own pa who'd shot off that finger. They said she'd drawn a gun against him, and he'd shot her gun right out of her hand and taken that finger with it. They said he could have killed her, but on account of her being a young woman and all, he hadn't. They said he'd meant it to be a lesson to her. They said it had only made her meaner, angrier, deadlier. I weren't sure if I believed those stories, until now. I gaped wide-eyed at her as she approached, heart pounding, fit to choke me. "Get up already, or you'll be as dead as your goddamned horse." I tugged my leg free at last and sprang to my feet, reaching fast for the pistol at my hip. It blasted from my hand with a stinging spark soon as it cleared leather, sending a sharp lance of pain through my palm. Then a third shot exploded pain through my left thigh. I cried out as I hit my knees. Blood spattered into the dirt. My eyes watered and I ground my teeth, gasping at the hazy air and ragged breaths. My whole left thigh was on fire, pulsing angrily around the ounce of lead now buried in it, and my right hand throbbed something terrible too. Nan stopped a few paces in front of me and leveled the barrel of her gun at my forehead. I considered the pistol still on my left hip, considered the point-blank range of the one pointed at my head. Slowly, I lifted my hands. My stomach turned. Holt had been right. I was a full-blown idiot for coming out here. Gone on a death wish, dead man walking. Plenty of men, older and wiser and faster and smarter than me, had come after Nine-Fingered Nan, and they were all dead. And Nan was still standing. "Call me a liar again," she whispered. I knew better. I couldn't help Ethelene if I was dead. I forced myself to look up into those cold, hard eyes and wondered why I wasn't dead already. "I just want my sister back," I said, voice gruff with pain. Maybe Nine-Fingered Nan was still human, somewhere down deep in that murderous soul of hers. Maybe she had even had someone else she cared about once. A husband, a child, a sibling of her own. "I just want her back." "What do you want for her? Money? You gonna sell her? Name your price." One of Nan's several white eyebrows lifted, just slightly. For a moment a blaze of hope lit through me, dulling the pain of the bullet in my leg. Nan did have her, or at least Nan knew where Ethelene was. That hard, expressionless face had cracked just a bit, just enough to let me glimpse what Nine-Fingered Nan loved the most: cold, hard cash. The grizzled old gun-slingin woman took one step closer, sneering down at me. A stupid young fool like yourself could never afford it, that's for sure. I ignored the insult. She was right, anyway. I was a stupid young fool for coming here, or at least for coming here alone and thinking I could get out alive. But then she hadn't killed me yet. I took a breath, took a gamble. I'll owe you, I said evenly. It was as much a death sentence as letting her put a bullet through my head right then and there, but at least it was a chance for Ethelene to be free. No one wanted to owe nine-figured Nan, lest they were impossibly desperate, so I'd heard, or lest they had a death wish. Well, I was impossibly desperate, and I guess I had a death wish too. She eyed me for a long, silent moment. The only sound the distant shrieking of that circling hawk. Then she tilted her head to one side, the shadow of her hat brim sliding long down her shoulder. The son of the infamous Lucky Logan willing to be old Nan's little errand boy. Her face split in a terrible grin. Then she laughed, the sound bouncing around inside the carved-out cliff face. She laughed and laughed and laughed. I took it. I stayed quiet. I stayed on my knees with my hands raised, the bullet hole in my leg leaking blood into the dirt. I let her have her moment. Pride would get me nothing but dead when it came to Nan, and not dead quick neither. She'd made that obvious when she'd shot my horse out from under me, so I waited for her to finish, laughing. I'd waited 9 years for this chance. I could wait a few minutes more. When she finally stopped, she wheezed for air and swiped tears from her leathery cheeks with her gun-free hand. Then she took a deep breath and shook her head. You got stones, boy, I'll give you that. And maybe if you had your pop's reputation, that'd be a suitable offer. But I don't know if you've proved yourself yet, at least not well enough to rest me assured I'd get my money's worth out of you. The desperation, that impossible desperation, surged in my chest. She couldn't say no. This was my only chance to get Ethelene back. After all this time, all the nightmares, all the drink, all the murdering, there was nothing else after this. Nothing but dead ends and death. Then give me a chance to prove it to you, I said, the words tumbling out in a rush. You ain't killed me yet. Why? Her gaze sharpened at the question, but I pushed on. You could have killed me 3 times over already, but you didn't. Why? Her lips pursed, the blue glare narrowing as her pistol arm straightened, bringing the barrel and its mortal payload closer to my skull. Testing the merit of Lucky Logan's get, she said quietly. So far, I have to say I've been sorely disappointed. I swallowed, but held her stare. Tried to slow my breathing, which had gone all quick and shallow. Looking down the barrel of a gun had never been a favorite pastime of mine, but doing it bleeding and at the mercy of 9-fingered Nan was far worse than any of my past experiences with such a thing. In all those cases, I'd still been armed, and the other man dead by my gun before he could get off a shot. I didn't come here to kill you, I said, just as quietly. It was a half-truth. I'd always planned to kill her if she didn't give me Ethelene. But as Holt always liked to say, the best-laid schemes of mice and men often go awry and leave us nothing but grief and pain for promised joy. I looked down the barrel of Nan's gun and gulped back the bitter laugh. How perfect was that ridiculous rhyme of his now. Oh, if only he was here now to see how royally I'd fucked this up. If only he was here now to lend me another gun in this fight. I came here to get my sister back is all, I said. No other man or woman who's drawed against me is still living. I saw her understand, saw it in the softening of her jaw, the slight lowering of her gun. She knew it was true. I might not have had the reputation of my infamous pa, no, but I did have one, or was starting to, and if she knew who I was, then she'd know what people said about me. And out here, that was the third best currency to bargain with, right after cold, hard cash and cold, hard bullets. I weren't as good as my pa, not yet, but there was no arguing I had no qualms about killing. Not when it needed to be done. She dropped her pistol abruptly back into its holster. Fine. We'll see what you're made of before killing you outright. You get back to Bravebank alive and with your wits intact, you'll find my man at the poker table in the Stag Saloon. I almost didn't hear. The relief made me dizzy, light-headed. Ethelene? I asked, breathlessly. Where is she? She'll be safe enough, lest you die in the desert. Nine-fingered Nan gave an amused snort. You make it to Bravebank first, boy, then we'll discuss terms. I nodded, vision blurred with tears despite myself. But you have her. You know where she is. Nan rested her gnarled hands on the twin pearl grips at her hips. From my vantage point, the stump of her right index finger was clearly visible. It tapped restlessly against the gleaming pearl. You said I did, she snapped. Didn't you? I nodded again. Renneker had said so, yeah. And if he'd been one of hers for a long time now, well, till I'd ended him anyway, would he have lied? Would nine-fingered Nan lie now? Course she'd lie to you, you dumb son of a bitch. I could hear Holt screaming the words even now. Of course she'd lie. But what I'd told her earlier was true. All my searching had led here, to her. This was it, the end of the trail. If Nan didn't have Ethelene, then I didn't know where to look next. Make it to Bravebank first, then she'll discuss terms. She had Ethelene. She must have. I kept nodding like an idiot, mostly 'cause I couldn't get any more words out, and mostly to convince myself Nan had to be telling the truth. You got 10 minutes to get the hell out of here, boy, Nan growled, before I change my mind. And with that she turned and walked away, boots crunching on the gravel. She disappeared into the ancient cliff dwelling, and with a start I saw 6 others emerge from their hiding places as well and follow her. 4 men and 2 women, likely her most trusted lieutenants. But they'd never even had to announce themselves. Nan had easily dispatched me all on her own, without even breaking a sweat. I felt a fool, all right, a colossal fool. But I was a living fool, and that was something. I'd wanted to leave here with Ethelene. Instead, I was leaving with a sore hand and a new hole in my leg, and a massive debt to Nan that would probably get me killed. But it seemed the only way forward, for now. Holt would be furious. Having a debt to Nan meant I'd be just what she'd said, her little errand boy. Jumping at her beck and call didn't sound particularly pleasant. But if that's what it took to get my sister free, that's what I was gonna do. It'd mess up his plans real good, but, well, ain't that what his favorite saying was all about? I closed my eyes and sank slowly down to all fours, sucking in a few deep breaths to settle the fear still coursing through my limbs. Then I winced and swore, moved my left leg just a bit, and cried out at the shock of pain. Fuck, it hurt. Blood soaked my pant leg. I wondered if the bullet had sunk into the bone, wondered if it was broken. Sure felt like it. I wondered if I might lose the leg. That'd be a sweet sight, all right. Lucky Logan's hobbled son. I shook my head and shoved such thoughts away. then used the body of my poor dead horse as leverage to get to my feet. The pain flared, taking my breath away. I stood a moment, balanced on my good leg, and waited for it to pass, breathed through it. There was surely no way I could put weight on my shot leg. I could tell that much easily enough. So I reached down and pulled my rifle from its scabbard, leaning on it heavily like a crutch, as I looked off the edge of this rocky rise out across the stretch of river below, and then beyond, to the mountainous desert that led toward the town of Bravebank. And my heart sank as I realized my predicament. No horse, no supplies, a gimp leg, a wound bleeding like a stuck pig, and miles of desert between me and Ethelene's freedom.